So, hi, I'm going to do a presentation here that I shared on Instagram on April 14th, 2020. This is part of a series that I've been doing on the COVID virus, and I want to sort of use astrology to unpack what we're going through, give us some perspective, give us a little clarity, and give us some hope. So, just to start off on a lighter note, we have all been doing this quarantine thing for probably longer than most of us are comfortable. And it's a time when we're all kind of wondering where this is headed. Um, Astrology is a really good tool for helping us stay grounded in the day to day. It helps us sort of manipulate time in a way that is helpful for the human experience because we have a very hard time waiting for what we want to manifest. So, what we've been doing is really letting this virus spread all over the globe and, stay protected in the meantime. And what I've noticed is that the astrology has lined up very, very well with the science. So we can see that a lot of what we're experiencing now really took off in February and March. And there are some actual astrological transits that we can point to that align with this pandemic and will help us unpack where it's headed. Okay, so the first culprits that we were going to look at are Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. These planets in astrology are often, herald new societal phases. They bring about different themes. They are longer term transits, which means that they last, in the case of Jupiter, for about 12 months. Saturn lasts for about 2.5 years in one sign, that is. And Pluto can last for quite a long time. Pluto is really more of a generational shift, and it has been in the sign of Capricorn since 2008. And it will be in the sign of Capricorn until, gosh, it's at least another 6 or 7 years. And they're in the sign, all three of these planets in 2020 spend a lot of this year in the same sign, in Capricorn. Capricorn is a very sobering zodiac sign, and it has a lot to do with letting go, with the systems of our lives, and with all of the frameworks that we use as human beings to get through our routines. So Jupiter, just to explain what these planets, how we experience them on Earth and what they mean in astrology. Jupiter is about expansion. It's about exaggerating anything that it comes in contact with. It magnifies. Meanwhile, Saturn is very much the opposite of that. It restricts, it isolates, it challenges. Saturn is the teacher planet. It really is about, taking away all the things that are extraneous in our lives and really getting us to look at what matters. Pluto, in the meantime, is very, very large, and its impact is very, very noticeable when it hits a sensitive point in your natal chart and also in the chart of, for example, the United States. The United States is going through the beginnings of what is called a Pluto return. So you're seeing the destruction of old conventions, the transformation of the way that we live, and the exposure of corruption. So these three planets are coming together in the same sign in 2020, which is very much a once in a 700-year experience. What's interesting is that when we've seen this in the past, it has very much lined up with historic plagues. We saw Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto come together during the early part of the first millennia in the Roman Empire. It's what brought the Roman Empire down. It also was evident during the bubonic plague. I believe that's called the Black Plague. The plague that killed off millions of native peoples in what is now Mexico. We also had the Saturn-Pluto alignment, and Jupiter-Pluto, which we have in 2020. We also had this in 1918. So these are and then we had them in the Hong Kong flu. We had it with the AIDS virus. Now we're having it with COVID-19. These are what are called the astrological signatures. And when we look at the astrological chart of a particular entity, whether it's a human being, whether it's a building, whether it's a nation, whether it's a government, whether it's a virus, we look to the absolute moment that it was born. The earliest date that has been reported is this November 17th, 2019 date in Wuhan, China. This is the first reported onset according to leaked Chinese government data that was leaked in the South China Morning Press. So this is the date that I am using. Not all astrologers are using the same date, but to me, and I covered this in a previous presentation, it really lines up with the astrology. It feels like the right date to me. And you'll see as we move forward how it's reflected in what has already taken place. So this is the chart of COVID-19. We don't have a birth time, but we have a birth day and we have a birth location. So we don't read the ascendant, but we do read the location of the planets. Okay. Now what I do in this presentation is I look at how this chart compares with the chart of the United States. Now this is a time and a place and a date that we can, many astrologers use this chart. There are a couple different United States birth charts that astrologers will reference. This is probably one of the more common ones, and that's why I am using it here. So what I found is that the astrological signature of this virus is activating these degrees, 4 degrees, 20 degrees, Cancer, Capricorn, give or take 3 degrees on either side. So I'm using a 3-degree orb. That's what we would call it in, that's what astrologers would reference. And I'm also looking at the Gemini Sagittarius as well, 7 degrees to 21 degrees. That's a long, it's a very wide orb, but specifically right around that 7 degree and that 21 degree. There's also a degree at 15 degrees Sagittarius Gemini that is going to be noteworthy as we move forward. But this is what I use as my measure to see what dates are especially potent for any sort of event around the significance of the development of the pandemic. Okay, so let's talk about some of the good news. That's Saturn in Aquarius. Now, Saturn is generally seen as a hardcore teacher. Whenever it moves into alignment with your natal chart, you are experiencing a significant turning point in your life usually. It also is, it offers some reward, some achievement, but there has to be a sacrifice made for that achievement. The thing about Saturn is it really wants you to sacrifice something for the sake of your integrity, for the sake of your authenticity. And in this case, in the sign of Aquarius, this is about sacrificing something as an individual so that we can, as a whole, achieve great things. And that quote that I found in the Atlantic, in an article written just last week or published last week in the Atlantic, really resonated with me because it's very much about a stronger society capable of relying on network coordination to achieve great things. That is what the quarantine is about. That very much reflects Saturn in Aquarius all the way through July 1st. And then it kind of dips back into Capricorn, and we won't get the full experience of Saturn in Aquarius until we move into next year. But this is just a taste of what is coming. Age of Aquarius is coming. But we'll experience that as we move forward. So social distancing has been the real Saturn in Aquarius signature. And it is working. It's hard. We don't like it. We miss our friends and our families, but it is working. We're seeing that in the computer modeling forecasts. Without social distancing, we would have had 25% more deaths than we are having now. We'd like to have 0 deaths, but this is really best case scenario considering the virus got out of hand. And so you can really see that when we did this in February and March, well, I'm sorry, actually, it was really right around when Saturn moved into Aquarius. That third week of March is when it all started, right? This is when everyone started to social distance, and this is very reflective of Saturn moving into Aquarius.